The revolver era was what I like to say is it was a deliberate gun. You shot it very deliberately. If you go back to that era and look at the revolver shootings and how many actually involved a reload, it wasn't a lot because the mindset was so different. You own every trigger press, every one of those. And that's a lot of responsibility people don't take for what it is.
Hey everybody, good morning. It's Connor. And we're here at the range with the American Fighting Revolvers. Darryl and Bryan are running through some pre-live fire stuff, learning how to press the trigger, learning how to grip the gun. Everybody's running model 66s. Bryan's got a model 586 L-Comp, it's a pretty slick gun. And yeah, we're doing just a lot of preparatory stuff. And should be getting ready for live fire pretty soon. So stay tuned, let's do it.
Find it, roll it again. Roll it again. Roll it again. Okay, fingers straight.
I'd been into guns since as long as I can remember, back to when I was about 3 years old. And I thought, man, I'm terrified of heights and I've never been in super good shape and I like guns. They'll pay me to do all three of those, right? So I knew at the time the police department, you either had to be prior military or a 4-year degree. And I was like, well, 4-year degree's out, so let's go play Army for a few years. And I stayed a patrol cop for the bulk of my tenure, just with some brief reprieve of pistol team events and firearms instruction. And I did that kind of on purpose because I didn't necessarily like the training. I liked certain things about it, but I was like, man, I feel like I've got an arena here that I can go get some hands-on, laboratory test bed of live human beings that I can see what is the input to the output. So I stayed in patrol just so that I had the opportunity to do more and more of that hands-on firearms instruction. Better than 85% of my career, there was a revolver on my person or in a gear bag or on my ankle somewhere, something. And always had a deep connection to them. You know, we've seen now through body camera footage and stuff that sometimes semi-auto pistols don't like to be shot in certain ways without certain ways of putting your hands on the gun or whatever, and revolvers, they're completely driven by your trigger finger, like all the mechanics of a gun, so they have some real benefit to where, you know, if your primary sidearm fails, it's the fail-safe, right? It may not be optimal, it may not be that, but hey, you're already in a gunfight, it's a bad day anyway, right? So and I saw a lot of friends of mine that got into entanglements and things like that, to where, an external sidearm was kind of not an option, and end up laying on your gun or something in a retention holster. So the backup gun was the big role for my era.
And I'm allowing gravity to help me get the rounds in here. So if I'm worried about efficiency, like I'm in a fight or I'm using the gun defensively, it's up, smack, turn it over, load. I'm a little different than a lot of these guys. That wasn't kind of a goal early on. It was always there, but I went to college to be a history professor originally.
It's quite the change.
Quite the change. So I tell guys, especially with the gun thing, weirdly, about midway through college, I had kind of just this calling and this change of wanting badly to go into law enforcement. I'm very much an academic person, deep reader, always kind of weird. When you go to be a history teacher, you're that guy. And, so I deep dived hard on the law enforcement thing with both feet, academically studying, changed my major to criminal justice. And I got a job at a police equipment distributor in San Diego as their first employee. I was dealing with all of the hot law enforcement teams and the gun stuff back then. When I started in law enforcement, I started with a revolver. And we tell people, Brian and I am year one of Gen X. Brian's the last year of Gen X. So we have this shared Gen X-ness, but we're way enough different that things are a bit different. And, you know, and I started out, my first duty gun was a 25.5 Smith & Wesson. I carried a 45 Colt, triple speed loaders that looked like tomato paste cans. Had a 3-inch Model 13 tucked behind those loaders and a Model 38 on my ankle, bodyguard. That was normal for the gun guys, that you'd carry 3 revolvers. So I've always had that deep connection to the revolvers, even when I was carrying a semi-auto. At some point, they kind of went to more of a backup role. These are really practical guns for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
That have all been getting told that they're terrible. You know, and then, you know, again, we do these classes and people just get their eyes open. Like, I had no idea how practical this is for my life, that nobody ever showed me, because
They
the people,
forgot.
because the industry
can't
is sort of
find it
forgot,
on
or
the
you
internet.
can't find it, or it's not cool, you know. So we've added a lot of practicality for people who now are very interested in carrying a firearm every day. If you can run a revolver trigger, you'll run any trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great training aids. There's just exponentially a bunch of stuff, and particularly now with a really sort of a reincarnation or a reinvention of concealed carry that is reaching into people who you would never in the past thought of. You know, all of a sudden, when you dial 911 and nobody's coming, of a generation who's been used to having subcontractors come when you dial 911 that are no longer coming. People are investing in their own safety and carry and stuff. And, you know, in that 13 to 16 ounce range of guns, there isn't a lot out there that works really, really good with very little training other than these revolvers, and super safe to carry and practical and easy to actually have a gun available to you all the time in that kind of size range with the reliability they have in a fight. And so again, a lot of that has sort of been lost, and we're trying to at least maintain it. And it's part of what we really love about where Brian and I have changed our focus from the tactical world. Now, Brian and I are very much focused on what we like to call, it's a Pat Rogersism, normal earth people, and the type of things they need for training and guns and stuff. And the revolver fits really well into that. And then you factor the history of them in there, of America. And it's sort of a beautiful thing.
In American manufacturing.
Yep.
You know, I mean, think about wartime manufacturing, World War II. I mean, that is a uniquely, with revolvers, a uniquely American thing. You know, you don't hear somebody talking about their insert name here foreign revolver. You just don't. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, people don't talk about their XYZ. It's like, I have my dad's Smith & Wesson. You know, I have my great uncle's Panama Canal Zone 19. You know, I mean, the gun that sits in our back at the top of our backdrop was my dad's service revolver until he was involved in a shooting with it. I don't know that we'll look back on our striker fired guns with that kind of reverence, you know. But Darryl and I are not anti-striker fired gun, and I think, you know, just the name American Fighting Revolver might make people think that we're anti-polymer or anti-this or that, and we're not. We just look at those guns like they have a lot of soul. They've got a lot of legacy to them, right? And we're really trying to preserve that legacy and a lot of that history, because some of those guns in our backdrop and the guns that we profile, they tell a story far beyond just the craftsmanship that went into building them.
All right, well, thank you for watching. Thank you guys for coming. If you want to know more about Brian and Darryl, AmericanFightingRevolver.com. There's a subscription on there. think it's like $5 a month, and basically that unlocks all of the features of the website. There's an online forum. Go and post it and talk about your revolvers, anything that you want to do. American Fighting Revolver on all the social media platforms.
Yes.
And these guys are all over the place too. So they don't just work with us. They work as consulting for the whole industry. But yeah, thank you guys.